Can you, I guess, perfectly mentor us on what to look for on and how to get started and where to get started?
I think the key is to figure out what you're coming into the sports card game for. I see this mistake a lot. So a person wants to come in as an investor, but they're not willing to give up the card. They get attached to the card. But if you're purely coming in it to make money, you have to be able to flip and turn and take in your ROI and move into the next thing. So I think people really have to understand what they're coming into it for. Now, if you're coming into it as a collector, well, great. So the number one thing I believe is
You could have a really old card, let's say,
Mhm.
that's worth a lot. I mean, or a baseball card that's really, really old, but it's a little bit damaged. Does that, does like,
Yeah,
how do you weigh what's more important?
yeah.
The rarity of the card or the condition of the card, I should say.
This is a great topic because if the card is super rare, a PSA 2, 3, 4 could be still worth thousands and thousands of dollars. Michael Jordan's Fleer rookie PSA 10 right now, a PSA 2 is like 2 to 3 grand, I believe, right now. So there's still money there, even if a PSA 2, if you think about a PSA 2, that's a very poor condition card. But I think also what's happening is with those PSA 10s, they're hitting 200,000, 220,000. But the everyday collector, the everyday person's like, hey, I can't spend $200,000 on this card, but I can go get a low condition one and pay 2,000. I can still have the card and enjoy the card. So if it is rare, if it is really rare, those PSA ones, PSA twos are still going to be worth good money.
It, for the people who are just getting started or they're interested now in investing, you convince them that the ROI is is there. It's
Yeah.
better than the stock market, and they hear this and they want to get started. Can you, I guess, perfectly mentor us on what to look for on and how to get started and where to get started?
Yeah, I think the 100%. I think the key is to figure out what you're coming into the sports card game for. I see this mistake a lot. So a person wants to come in as an investor, but they're not willing to, or a reseller, right? But they're not willing to give up the card. They get attached to the card, right? That's the one good thing about the card market, and one bad thing. You physically can hold the card, so you see a lot of attachment issues. But if you're purely coming in it to make money, you have to be able to flip and turn and take in your ROI and move into the next thing. So I think people really have to understand what they're coming into it for. Now, if you're coming into it as a collector, well, great, right? Maybe you have a little bit of investing aspect, but you're able to hold on to the cards, enjoy the cards, watch your favorite player play while holding the card and enjoying it. So the number one thing I believe is make sure you know what you're coming into this game for. That's the biggest thing. I see it like every day. I'll have friends, right, that will be like, "Hey, Sash, like I want to get into this. Like, what do I do?" And I'll like hit them up and I'll be like, "Okay, what are you getting into for?" Blah blah blah. And they'll be like, "Oh, I actually bought a bunch of boxes of Prism basketball and I ripped them all." And I was like, "Well, that's gambling." Right? So if you're coming into it from just to have fun, then go rip some boxes, have a good time. Just know that the ROI is most likely not going to be there.
Really, even by buying those boxes.
It's gambling in its finest form. You can hit big, right? You can buy a box for $1,000 and hit a $10,000 card, but most of the time, you're gonna get $1,000 box, you're gonna get 200, $300 out of it. Unless you find a really good card and you can send it to PSA and then you're waiting the long game and trying to break even, right? That's one of the biggest, I wouldn't say issues, but problems that people when they get into the card game, they just go buy boxes and start ripping them. The ROI isn't there. The ROI I tell everybody is, buying singles, whether that's graded or getting educated on grading these cards and sending them into PSA. Now again, it's fun to rip. I know, I've seen it. There's a reason why live breaks on Instagram, are going crazy. You'll see guys like Rob Kardashian and other people live breaking because it's fun. It's fun. It's gambling at its finest
Yeah,
form, and
it's
it's
like
fun.
playing at the roulette table or the craps table and rolling the dice.
Exactly. But at the same time, if I'm talking to somebody that's coming in as an investor or a reseller or a flipper, I would say, "Hey, look, maybe you can rip, once you get more established with your singles and stuff like."
So what's your decision process before you buy a card? Like, how do you know what you should pay and what it's worth and when, and most importantly, when to sell?
Yeah. Well, the number one thing is I use eBay like everybody else. I use eBay sold and completed items to know what a card, sells for. And again, I also have, friends who've paid for similar cards and I can get a understanding from them what a card's worth. And what I look for currently, I've actually shifted what I've been doing for the last several months. Because over the past year, really truly what I've been doing is I've been buying these young players, either whether getting them graded or already buying PSA 10s and flipping them during the season and keep moving my money and working my money that way. Um, I still had, a lot of Hall of Fame players. I still had legends, but it was heavy on the young stars. Currently, what I'm shifting to is going to these more rare and expensive cards because I'm seeing what's happening with these fractional ownership companies buying these really rare and expensive cards. I've used this analogy before. It's almost like buying, investing in a private company before it goes public, right? It's very similar to that. So currently, right now, and I'll tell you exactly what I'm buying. I'm buying Jordan Fleer PSA 9s. I'm buying Kobe Bryant Topps Chrome Refractors, which is one of his top of the line rookie cards. I'm buying LeBron's rookie cards, LeBron Topps 111 PSA 10 rookie cards at scale. I'm kind of moving a lot of my money that I've made from these flips and young prospects and stars and putting them into that because I think those are going to be the cards that over the next 5 and 10 years are going to be seeing even more growth and more ROI. And then when to sell, man, for young stars, I like, for example, I love Luka Doncic and Trey Young. So I can hold that a little bit longer than I could Zion. It's funny, like I'll buy Zion cards in the morning, like 9, 10 a.m., and then I'll flip them by 2 p.m. So that's kind of the notion I'm also trying to get people to understand for young players. At the end of the day, this market is hot, but there will be a point where the market isn't hot. And do you want to be holding, 100 Zion Williamson base prism PSA 10s that are, they're easy to find? Probably not, right? Would you rather be holding a LeBron rookie card? 100%.
I mean, it's crazy. What brought back this resurgence in sports cards? I mean, go back 10 years ago. I remember I bought like some sort of magazine to look at what my cards were worth. And it was like, all right, it's nothing. I'll just hang on to them. They were just cards from my youth. Then all of a sudden, this exploded.
Yeah.
What brought this all back?
Well, and Pokemon cards too. That's also been huge as well.
We'll
Um,
get there. We'll get
Yeah,
there. I
yeah,
promise.
so sure. I think there's a couple things. The number one thing, I don't know if there's a number one, but there's a couple dynamics that come into play. The pandemic had a big plus because everybody was stuck at home, right? They couldn't do anything. And they're hearing about the sports card thing going on, and they bought a couple boxes, started ripping, and people got hooked. But I would make the debate that if the pandemic didn't happen, this was still occurring. The pandemic just kind of jump started everything. Um, there's, Gary Vee talks about this a lot. The people in their 40s and 50s, they have 8, 9, 10-year-old sons and daughters, and they, start, they wanted to get them into it, and now they're both hooked, right? And then there's the investing aspect of, hey, look, like I can buy a LeBron rookie card or a Jordan rookie card and it will appreciate over time. Now that's happening at a way bigger scale, but I think that's kind of what got people started and hooked. And then again, there's the gambling aspect of, hey, look, I can buy $1,000 box and potentially, you know, get a card that's worth 10, 20, 30, $40,000. And then I think art is the biggest thing too. I really think these cards are turning into art pieces and art forms, especially when you look at some of the rarity of these Michael Jordan cards, Kobe Bryant cards, LeBron rookie cards, Kareem rookie cards. Um, there's a lot of rarity that comes into play. And I think when rarity comes into play with something physical, I think good things really happen. I mean, why is an art piece worth, $50 million, right? Like, why? So if you look at some of these Michael Jordan rookie cards, well, Michael Jordan's way more popular than, an art piece that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
When you tell them there's only, I think there's only 360 around there, Fleer rookie PSA 10s, which is his pristine rookie card. And 150 of them aren't going to be sold because people are just not going to sell them. And fractional ownership companies are buying up the rest. that $200,000 card in 10 years probably gonna turn into $1,000,000 card.